here today with Judge C. Darnell Jones II of the United States District Court for the Eastern District of Pennsylvania. Hi, Judge.
Good afternoon, Lynn. Good to see you.
Great, and it's good to see you too. Thanks a lot for coming here.
Thanks for having me.
Participating. That your title now is a little longer than most of the others other interviewees that I've had here today. Can we start out by well, at the beginning, where you came from and your background?
Certainly. I am born and bred a Sooner. I am from Claremore, Oklahoma,
All right.
hometown of Will Rogers.
There you go. I didn't know it was the hometown of Will Rogers.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
Have you ever met a man you didn't like?
On occasion.
Were you part of a large family? Or?
Actually, my mom and my dad and my sister and I constituted our family. My mother was a teacher for 33 years. My father was a teacher, then turned rancher and construction worker. My sister is a music teacher and now counselor, retired.
Oh,
And,
that's great.
Here I am.
Yeah. Did you go to grade school out there, or at what point did you move east?
Went to grade school, graduated from high school there in Claremore, Oklahoma. Went to college in Kansas, a private college called Southwestern College in Kansas, majored in French. I am a French-speaking cowboy, and migrated to Washington, D.C. for law school.
Oh, okay.
People ask me how I ended up in Washington. I said I had a hearing problem. I thought that Horace Greeley said, "Go east, young man." But I ended up in Washington for law school at American University and came here out of the law school in Philadelphia.
Yeah. What prompted the move to Philadelphia? Was there any particular reason?
Ironically, my best friend from law school, and best friend to this day,
Yeah.
was in the class ahead of me, and he was originally from Pennsylvania, from Donora, Pennsylvania. Had come to Philadelphia upon his graduation to the Defender Association, and so I was looking into it and received an offer. Ironically, was hired by the district attorney's office here in Philadelphia and came here.
Okay.
And then after I got here, I spoke with my best friend, and I jumped ship and went to the PD's office.
Right. And that's where we first met. Yeah. Now I know for years you were working in the family division of the Defenders Association.
Correct.
And how long were you there for?
I was in the family division, I think, from 1979 to 1987. I joined the Defender in '75.
Okay.
And went through the regular rotation. Became assistant chief in 1979 at family court, and then promoted to chief in '85.
All right.
And then within 2 years, Governor Casey appointed me to the bench.
Yeah. All right. That's great too, wasn't it? Were there other judges who were also appointed at the same time as you? Or?
At that time, yes. Another irony, 3 of those who were appointed are now also on the district court. 2 others, Judge LeBron Davis and Judge Patrice, now Chief Judge, Judge Patrice Tucker.
Oh, she's the chief judge?
Yes, he's the chief judge now.
Well, that's great.
For me, it was unique in that the Defender Association was probably around 50 years in celebration. We were celebrating at around the time. And I ended up being the first defender to ever come directly from the Defender office directly to the bench.
What do you? Oh, there's a
little tidbit.
Yeah, to celebrate that. How about, before we get into your legal career, what about your married life? I know.
I am a very proud father of 5. Perhaps the one that's most notable here for everyone else in the city and the area is Chanel Jones, my daughter from Fox 29, Good Day Philadelphia fame.
Right, yeah.
My son, oldest son, was just written up on Huffington Post, having provided lyrics and music for a play that he and 2 others have put together and written. And
that's great.
it was in the New York Times a few months ago with another play that he was involved in.
Wow.
We have a daughter who's a physician down in Washington, D.C. And the last 2 are twins, boy and girl, both now 25 years of age.
That's great. And I know you were talking to your wife earlier on the phone, so I know you're still keeping close contact wherever you go.
Yes, that's sort of an obligation that we created many, many years ago. We always
Yeah.
let each other know where we are, and she just texted me to tell me she had just landed in Florida with her sisters on their sisters' weekend together.
And with the weather out here
And I'm
today.
here in the rain.
Sorry. Um, back to your legal career. Actually, your career as a judge. What sort of cases were you presiding over during the time?
Well, when I began, ironically, I began right here in City Hall
Mhm.
when I came on the bench in 1987.
Mhm.
And then we were assigned initially to the criminal division. I was upstairs in courtroom 704.
All right.
And I used to, well, I now look back on it and think about we would have trials, waiver trials. If we took a bathroom break, we'd go to the bathroom, and you'd be standing right there next to the defendant who's on trial, and one who was just on trial, and one who's going to be on trial. And fortunately, nothing ever happened.
Yeah.
But
But
then
criminal cases were still held here.
right here in
before
City
the
Hall.
95 when the
Justice Center
criminal
was
justice.
open.
Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah. But ultimately, I went through the entire rotation on the court. Ironically, I never sat in family court. I came on to the felony waiver division when I came in 1987.
Mhm.
And then through 96 to 99, I was co-coordinator of the homicide division.
All right.
And then in 1999, came over here to City Hall
Mhm.
to the civil division and did the major civil trial rotation.
Mhm.
And then ultimately Commerce Court.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So you were in Commerce Court when you were elevated, so to speak, to the
Yes,
federal
just
court?
before. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, actually, I was president judge.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay. You were president judge, but not for a full 5-year term.
Correct. I was president judge, I believe, from 2006 to 2008.
Okay. And then you were appointed.
Right, appointed to the federal bench
Yeah.
by President Bush.
And how's that?
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Absolutely fantastic. It's obviously the kind of cases is totally different for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
It is a venue where there are very, very few trials, unlike here in the state court system. Most of the things are decided either by, in the civil side, motions for summary judgment, motions to dismiss, or settlement.
Yeah.
Rarely do those cases go to trial. And on the criminal side, it's almost the same in terms of the disposition of cases. The overwhelming majority end up in guilty pleas.
Okay.
And so a few of those cases are tried as well, but an enormous amount of writing. And I've been very fortunate, as of this date, having been on the court. We'll be celebrating 5 years on the court there.
Congratulations.
In about 2 more weeks.
Great.
And I've been very fortunate to have been selected by Chief Judge McKee to sit on the Third Circuit by designation. And I'll be doing that for my 4th time coming up this January.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. You've certainly come far from when I first met you. That's
Well,
for
wanting
sure.
to be Willie Mays in the country in Oklahoma, yeah, I've come a little ways.
Listen, was there anybody in the practice of law, either in this area or nationally, who you may have looked up to or seen as?
As a lawyer or as a judge?
Well, let's do both. First, as a lawyer.
Well, as a lawyer, I think probably growing up and reading about Thurgood Marshall and the things that he was doing based upon Brown versus Board of Education.
Right.
He was certainly an icon for me.
Mm-hmm.
And on the bench, it was much more focused to people that I know or knew. Both have passed on at this point in time, and that would be the late Harvey Schmidt.
Right.
And the late Juanita Kidd-Stout, Justice Juanita Kidd-Stout.
Who's also in
Who's
Oklahoma.
also from Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Yeah, take great. She and I both had a tremendous amount of pride in the fact that we were both from Oklahoma, and ended up ironically sharing what we call the Oklahoma wing over at the Justice Center when we were both in the homicide division.
Okay. I know I had lunch with her one time, and she had to remind me, she said, Len, my first name is not Judge. So,
Exactly.
she allowed me to call her
Humility.
Juanita, yes. But she was a stickler for propriety too, I
And
think.
grammar.
Right? Yeah.
Indeed.
And Harvey Schmidt I also knew because I appeared before him in juvenile court.
Which is where you and I met.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. And He was a judge that you didn't want to play with too
Exactly.
much. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Also a stickler for decorum.
Yeah. Yeah. Very much in this courtroom. Well, what do you think the practice of law has changed a lot since you were practicing law? I know it was a different kind of law
Right.
that you were practicing.
Within my circle at the time of being an assistant defender,
Yeah.
it's 180 degrees, I think, in the opposite direction now, which is a positive thing in the sense that, as I was commenting to some people just the other day, when I was here in the mid-'70s as an assistant defender,
Yeah.
the tradition was the public defenders had to go on at the very end of the day after everyone else's cases had been disposed.
That's right.
Then it was time for the PD to take his or her case to the bar of the court. In addition thereto, no matter how successful you would have been or may have been in terms of the ultimate outcome of the cases, the news media never mentioned your name. You never got credit
That's
in
very,
either print
very
media
true.
or otherwise in terms of your accomplishment.
No, you didn't get any recognition.
And today, it's a totally different ballgame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
There's praise where there's praise due.
yeah, I agree, and the defender always has done a good job.
Indeed.
Lately, they've been congratulated for doing such, but I mean, they always have. As I well knew when I was administering over in family court. You said that you mentioned that the most of the cases don't go to trial in federal court, and I know that this court has been striving to get to that place also. But I've never been even in a federal courtroom, so I have no idea how is it different from a common pleas courtroom?
Well, let me speak to the similarities first. And
Okay.
I think that probably the most similar experience I've had was the fact that I was on the Commerce Court here, the Commerce Case Management Court, the business court here, where there's an individual calendar, there's a plethora of law clerks, and a number of things that inure to the benefit of the assistance of the court in resolving cases. Magistrate judge down at the federal court who can assist the court in settling cases out of court.
Mm-hmm.
And while there is the judge pro tem program here, I don't think that the expectation is that they're going to settle the cases as readily as the judge's magistrate judge would do in the federal court. And also in the federal court, the magistrate judge takes additional responsibilities in drafting what's called rules and recommendations regarding bankruptcy and certain kinds of cases like that. They can also sit as special masters. But the bottom line is our cases in the federal system are individually assigned to the court. Once in a criminal case, they pass the magistrate system, they're assigned to a trial judge, and that judge takes that case from that point until it's concluded.
Mm-hmm.
And in the civil arena, the same way, no matter what the case is, once it's filed, it directly goes to the trial judge, and that case has jurisdiction over that case from that inception period all the way until the end.
Okay.
When you do that, initially we have rules of civil procedure that require the attorneys to meet and discuss their matters, and then they're to come before the judge in what we call a Rule 16 conference, with the expectation that everyone's going to be on the same page in terms of preparation, knowing where they're going to go, what they want to do with the case. And the ideal situation is that the case is going to be much more readily resolvable, if you will.
Yeah.
Much more readily resolved in a shorter period of time. However, I have based my system on what I learned here in the civil system with our Day Forward program.
Okay.
You know, in identifying cases and trying to identify them as standard or complex and giving them the requisite amount of time.
All right.
And also when you come on, traditionally in the federal system, you are assigned a number of cases from other judges' dockets, which traditionally, although it's disavowed, but traditionally all over the country, they're the less desirable cases and the ones that can be as old as you are by the time you get them on your docket.
A little thorny.
Yes. But we've made our way through those in the last 5 years. I only have a couple more that I think began perhaps as late as or as early as 2003, before I was born.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there are similarities, and you try to classify cases as far as their complexity.
Yeah.
And you have certain dates or dates certain where attorneys are expected to have
Exactly.
accomplished a lot.
Exactly.
And so it's still the same story where attorneys settle cases, courts don't. So
Indeed, and I think for both systems, the predictability of the outcome is probably the one tool that is best utilized in both systems.
Yeah.
When attorneys have a reasonable expectation of the outcome of the case based upon the facts and the law, and accepting that the judge is going to adhere to that,
Yeah.
there's a probability that you can discuss that with your respective client and predict the outcome and settle the case.
yeah, they're not going to go off on tangent
Exactly.
somewhere. Um, is there anything that you've done or you've been involved with in others, or even a particular case that has affected you more than any others, or that you think you are extremely proud of? Or
Well, I think as I look back on the period that I was here during my presidency, Judge Annette Rizzo and I put our heads together to come up with the mortgage foreclosure program,
yeah,
which went viral, if you will.
yeah. I mean,
In a
it
positive
became
way.
it became a model, definitely. Yeah,
And obviously very proud of that, but more importantly, the fact that we, at a time when the economy was causing much duress in the housing market here and nationally, we were able to come up with a program that really dealt with those issues and tried our best to keep people in their homes.
yeah.
And we
I
were
know
very
that was your
right.
your goal.
Right.
Can you explain a little bit more about how the mortgage foreclosure program
Well, yes, in a
works?
nutshell, when people were faced with the formality of foreclosure, our system was devised as a case management tool as opposed to interfering with a contract that existed, such as the mortgage,
Yeah.
to allow a meeting of those who were borrowers and those who were lenders to try to ameliorate the problems and deal with the possibility of having things refinanced or extended or things of that nature, or in some instances, just a graceful and honorable leaving of the home, leaving from the home, as
Yeah.
opposed to removal from the home. I mean, there were children in school
Yeah.
in the middle of foreclosures, and to keep those children in the house, in the school, to the end of the school year, I thought was a humane thing to do, and that was one of the things we were able to accomplish.
You're right.
The other thing, quite honestly, had really nothing to do with the law, but it happened during the course of my tenure here as a judge, and that was the week of Hurricane Katrina. Like everyone, I saw what was going on,
Yeah.
and decided, along with about 5 lay friends of mine from my neighborhood, that we were going to go down to New Orleans and to Slidell, Louisiana, and help.
That's
And
wonderful.
I recall about, I guess it was about 1 o'clock in the morning, the Sunday after Katrina, I sent an email to all of the judges here, telling them that as judges, we could not raise funds for
Right.
anything. So I was going to call on my colleagues to help us finance this trip to New Orleans. And the outpouring of support, it still chokes me up. It was just absolutely tremendous.
It's wonderful.
And 6 of us were able to take 2 truckloads of goods down there. Spent a week down there. And I remember calling at the time Administrative Judge James Fitzgerald, to report to him and apologize that I had to leave without getting permission from the administrative judge. But he was so supportive and so encouraging, and it was just, it was a labor of love.
Yeah.
And the most fascinating thing about it was during our trip, when so many people found out that one of the people in this group was a judge from Philadelphia,
Yeah.
and he was down there with his sleeves rolled up and
Yeah.
boots on
Yeah.
and baseball cap with the Eagles on the cap,
Yeah.
the Phillies on the cap.
Okay.
It was just a very, very wonderful experience, and
Yeah.
that probably was one of the greatest things I think I've ever done in life, period.
I
But
agree.
also when I was a judge.
That's great. That's a great story. Yeah, because I mean, the effects of Katrina are still affecting many people's lives, and not to mention the subsequent storms also. But I'm very proud of you for having done that. Yeah, you did a good job. That's great. Is there anything else you might want to talk about or cover today? Anything that's important to you?
Well, I think, first of all, the fact that this is being done is just incredibly beneficial, not only for those of us who are participating as far as in terms of perhaps an honor, but it leaves a legacy for others to look at, to view. It's going to be online so that a lot of people can view it. But for people like me, it's wonderful to be able to reach back and say thank you to those who preceded me, and were role models, mentors. And I credit, and even though I said that I was the first defender to ever come directly from the defender office to the bench in 1987 when it occurred, other people have come from that office now since that point in time. But the person who prodded me to even put my name in for the appointment was now Judge Benjamin Lerner.
Yeah, and we have interviewed him.
And Judge Lerner was, he was incredibly persistent for me to go ahead and attempt to be appointed to the bench. And it's all worked out, and I just have the utmost admiration and respect and appreciation for all he did for me too, because he was also the chief defender when I worked there, so it was good.
Yeah, well, that's great. I'm glad he did push it. I'm telling you. Do you have any advice for attorneys or judges, or both, starting out today?
Well, as I teach at Penn at the law school, and I have always told my students.
So you do have some advice,
yeah, it's all about preparation, 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 and guarding your reputation. And beyond that, whether you're a judge or a lawyer, the golden rule still applies. When I practiced law, I wanted judges to respect me as I respected them, and now as a judge, I will respect the lawyers as I want them to respect me, and the litigants and all the participants in the courtroom, from the court clerk to the court crier to the janitor who locks the door at night. It's so very important to be humane and respectful in all of your dealings, and that's the advice I always give to lawyers and to judges as well.
Yeah, well, I believe that everybody deserves to be treated with dignity. So, and toward that end, I really appreciate your coming down here today.
It's been absolutely my pleasure. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Judge C. Darnell Jones II.